Hello folks, hope you're having a wonderful day as we go into a new week. Here are some hobby nightmares and I hope you enjoy them. If you like what I do, please like the video, it does me wonders in the algorithm and make sure that more people can get involved in watching our vaunted Hobby Nightmares series. So, not a huge episode this week, but I do have two very interesting Hobby Nightmares that I got a little bit earlier on last week and over the weekend as well, that I had much fun reading on the train. So, let's have a little look in, shall we, with Dean first. What a lovely name you have, sir. He says, "Hi Northern, I'm a new subscriber and found you through Mordian Glory." Well, thank you very much, and he's a good channel over there. And I had to say, your content really resonates with me. I'm an ex-Games Workshop manager myself, originally born and raised in Manchester, but I've been living in the United States for a few years now. Listening to your stories, it's like reliving my own experiences through somebody else's eyes. It's been a blast, so thank you for that. I wanted to share my own little story from my time with Games Workshop, or should I say, Warhammer, as they're calling it now. Fun fact, I actually opened the first branded Warhammer store in my state. That's cool, that's cool. So when I was working with GW, I was very, very, very close, this is North talking, to actually going to a place called Union City in California. They were opening a new store, or they needed a manager for the store, and I was very, very, very close to transferring because I was seeing somebody at the time who lived in California. Eventually, I sort of pulled the plug on that relationship because it wasn't really going where I wanted it to go. You know what I mean? And so I didn't end up moving, but I was very, very, very close. I could have ended up working at Games Workshop in America, but there we go. So, here's how it all began. A bit of Northern lore there for you, sorry folks. Here's how it all began. Picture this. I'm one of those kids who got dropped off at the Trafford Centre in Manchester whilst my parents went shopping. This was back when it still had the Festival Village. I was pretty young, didn't have any money to spend, and found myself wandering into the Games Workshop store on an early Saturday afternoon. It was a multi-crew store, which, as you know, is pretty rare. The place was packed, and there was this massive Warhammer 40k game going on across two tables. Ah, the days when Games Workshop allowed gaming in their stores. Oh. I still think one of the main reasons for their rebrand into Warhammer stores is because they don't want people, Games Workshop, but you don't play games there. Kind of doesn't make sense, but if you rebrand it to Warhammer, it's different, isn't it? The energy in the room was electric. Dice were rolling, players were shouting, and models were clashing in epic battles. One of the staff, oozing charisma, spotted me and asked if I wanted to join in. I was honest and told him I didn't have any models or money. I must have been about 12 or 13 at this time, and he just smiled and said, "Ha, not to worry." He took me to the glass display case, the Tower of Power, if you're familiar with the corporate lingo. I am. So the Tower of Power is essentially you showing off your best bits in the outward facing. Do you know what I mean? So glass display case facing the public eye, people can look in and see it. You know what I mean? It gets people in from the street. Anyway, but instead of the usual customer bait, this one was filled with employee armies. He asked which one I thought looked coolest. I pointed at the Black Templar Space Marines, and before I knew it, he pulled out a rhino, a few squads, and threw me into the game. What followed was pure magic. I was thrust into the battlefield, filled with monstrous creatures and tanks. The sound of dice clattering against the table, the smell of fresh paint on models, the thrill of strategy, it was intoxicating. I had an absolute blast, surrounded by amazing players who were thrilled to have me. They cheered me on, gave me tips, and made me feel like I was part of it all, part of something much bigger. After the game, he asked if I wanted to try painting a model, and of course, I jumped at the chance. Dude, this manager is really good. He's really good. He doesn't have time to give you an intro game, but because he has cultivated a really good set of customers in his store that he can trust to teach other people how to play 40k, he was able to put you on that table, have you have a load of fun, and then when he has time later on, take you through a painting tutorial, This guy knows what he's doing. This is a really, really, really good manager. Of course, I jumped at the chance, and he handed me a Space Marine and some paints, gave me a quick guide, and let me at it. A bit later, there was a painting competition and some awards for the big game participants. They were calling out names, handing out prizes, and out of nowhere, the guy who brought me in stood up on a table and pointed at me and tossed a box of Space Marines my way. "Welcome to the Imperium," he shouted. The room erupted in cheers and welcomed me into the hobby, and just like that, I was hooked. This was more than a game, it was a world I wanted to dive into head first. Dude, this might be the most uplifting entrance into the hobby story I've ever read. This Games Workshop manager's a legend. He's a legend. Like, can you imagine that, dude? Can you imagine being a young kid? Because when you were a kid, you used to look up to the Games Workshop staff. At least I did, right? They were like your heroes. Like, you'd walk in there, they were all these really cool dudes. And can you imagine going in there, you know, your first time in the hobby, and not only do they take you in and they show you how to play the game and you get used to it, but you get some free models too, dude, and they make you feel like $1,000,000. This is how you do it, man. This is how you do it. Fast forward to about 6 or 7 years ago, here in the United States, I decided to reach out to Games Workshop here in the US. I sent them an email, out of the blue, explaining my background from the UK, my love for the hobby, and my interest in joining the company. I didn't even know if there were any job openings, but I took a shot and offered my services if they ever needed staff in my area. Months went by, and I'd started attending a tech school for IT, and one day I got a call while in class, stepped out, and it was a Games Workshop recruiter. My heart was pounding. They flew me out to Texas for an interview, and it must have gone well because they offered me the job on the spot. They were opening a new Warhammer store nearby in my state for a new store, and wanted me to take the lead as the new store manager. For 3 months, I was on their payroll without a store to manage, waiting in eager anticipation. They brought me back to Texas for a week of training at their headquarters. They had this near full-scale mock-up store set up, complete with products and tables, and walking into that setup, it felt like stepping into a secret world, like I'd been given the keys to the kingdom. I was ready to share the magic I'd experienced as a kid with a whole new generation of gamers. The training itself was typical intense sales. I'd already been in high intensity sales a few times, and even so on commission, so I was fairly good at understanding it all. I went through it with 2 other staff members. They drilled us on running customers through the build, paint and play demo, then sliding seamlessly into the sales pitch. You know, here's the core box, tools, paint, etc. I get it, it's a business and they need to make money. But when you're leading a kid and his dad to the register, and that total hits nearly $300, it feels like a hard sell for such a niche hobby, right? Yes. Yes. Dude, I hated this. I hated this. Like, it's the worst thing. Like, how do you justify the sheer amount of money it costs to start up in Warhammer? Like, I don't know almost any other hobby that wrenches you immediately as much as Warhammer does, you know? And it's greed too. It's sheer greed. Like, the prices are not there because they need to be that high, right? Games Workshop would still be a multi 50-60 million pound, you know, sheer profit company, even if they drop the prices. You know, it's just greed. That's all it is. And you hit the nail on the head there. Taking a family through this, getting them so worked up about the hobby that then it's like, you know, oh yeah, that's £300, please, just to start. Just to start. You know? And before you say, no it isn't, yes it is. Yes it is. For the main starter box set, they always cost around £100 to £120, right? There are different types of starter box set now. Yes, that was a very good idea. But really, when Dark Imperium was out, you're going to get Dark Imperium. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm saying? You're not going to get the other 2 sets. I hardly sold any of those. I would only ever sell Dark Imperium. Or Dark Vengeance when that was out, right? So, you know, yeah, so that's 125, whatever it was, right up. Then you do like 25 for your paints, another 20 for your clippers, right? Another 30 for your codecs. Before you know it, you're running up 200, 300 pounds. You know, yeah, come on, dude. You know, and yes, there are ways to get into the hobby that don't cost that much money, but that's not what you're taught at Games Workshop. You're taught to rinse these people. Get as much out of them as you can. Anyway, once I finally opened my store, I could always see the shock in their eyes, the hesitation in their wallets. I knew this wasn't what had brought me into the fold years ago. I tried to keep the spirit of that first experience alive in my store, but it was a struggle, let me tell you. Even though I ran my store my way and did well, there was a real disconnect between corporate and the stores. I felt like I was on an island, and the only time I got calls was when they wanted to talk numbers or inform me about the upcoming retail workshops. They flew every manager in the US to Texas for a weekend for workshop training. I got to meet all the other managers, of which some were amazing, some were awful, depending on who you asked. These were those typical seminar type events where they'd go over profit margins, reveal new stuff, complain about habits we had in the stores. You know the drill. Yeah. Went to a few of these. Yeah, they weren't great. They weren't great. I'll be honest with you. You know, they weren't great. I didn't enjoy them, to be honest with you. It was very cliquey. It was very brown nosy, and it was like going back to high school again. It was weirdly, you know, full of cliques, full of in crowds. And if you weren't in the in crowd, or they just decided you weren't for them, you know what I mean? It was a hell of a weekend, dude. I hated every single second of it when it got to that stage. And there was a few of us who were like that. There was a few managers who were like, wow, this really sucks. This really sucks. Isn't it funny how nerds who were bullied in high school become bullies when they get a modicum of power? Just saying. Weird. Anyway, the big wigs would stand at the podium, telling us to push core boxes, focus on new players, and minimise veteran presence physically in the stores, and send them off to play elsewhere. Yeah. Veterans will steal your store's oxygen, they joke. They take up table space and can't always be relied on to spend. The magic of the hobby was getting lost in the spreadsheets. It was hard to see myself in the company as there just to do a job. I suppose I saw behind the curtain, as they say. Yeah, you saw how the sausage is made, my friend. The real magic is in how you are a manager and the real magic is in how you are as a manager and the interactions you have with other people. The company behind the managers is become very corporate and very greedy. We had to explain price hikes, defend Games Workshop's odd choices, and all the while they were purposefully choosing smaller store sizes so they wouldn't have to put in tables that were bigger than a 4x4 square feet. We were like gatekeepers of sales targets than champions of the hobby. Overall, it felt like the focus on getting new players hooked and then moving on to the next, rather than building a community, was taking hold. It's a far cry from the welcoming, inclusive vibe that got me into the hobby. Despite the corporate push, I did my best to recreate the amazing experience that I had as a kid, and it paid off. My store was successful, with high numbers, great events, and positive reviews. I'll wrap it up here though. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the training and onboarding process. It felt so different from what I remembered, and if you're interested, I have a few horror stories about my time at Games Workshop. Dude, send them in! Send them in, man. That's awesome. How they dealt with me, and some rather gnarly customer interactions. Maybe for another time. Sorry this wasn't as exciting as other stories, this was just more of a sharing experience if anything, but I definitely have more dramatic stories, believe me. Send them in, man. Send them in. Thank you for what you do. It almost feels like therapy for employee PTSD via Games Workshop, listening to your videos whilst I still, to this day, have a hobby and paint. Huzzah! Cheers, Dean. Cheers, man. Yeah, send them in, mate. Send them in. Do people call you Dino? They call me Dino. Can't stand it. Can't stand it. My granddad calls me that, and he's allowed to call me that. Nobody else is, though. Sod it. Nobody else is. But the training and onboarding process. So, yeah, my training was intense. Simply because they pretty much needed somebody to go and take over the store yesterday. You know what I mean? So, from what I remember, I went down to head office. My manager at the time was under no obligation to give me time off to go to the head office, so he didn't. Which I still think was a bit of a dick move, but there we go. So I had to use my holidays to go and, and do my training, essentially. Which I then found out later on he shouldn't have done, but there we are. I went down to Warhammer World to basically... we went into Bugman's, me and my trainer went into Bugman's bar, sat down, had a coffee, and I got my vaunted black jumper, which I then put on. I went around, pretty much met everybody from the cleaners to the CEO, at head office, all of them, and I mean all of them, Roundtree included, and and it was cool. It was a cool day. It was a cool day. And from then on in, I met my trainer at my store, and we did 2 days of pretty intense role-playing training. Cringe. Horrible. Cringe. Pretty much did that for 2 days, and then eventually he would remain with me in the store for another day as he watched me interact with different customers, and when he was happy that I was doing the job properly, he swanned off, and that wasn't the last I saw of him. I saw quite a lot of him, unfortunately. But yes, that's exactly how it went for me. So mine was a bit more intense than yours, but it really does seem to me like nothing changed between your time at Games Workshop and my time at Games Workshop. Do you know what I mean? That's the most stark thing I've got here. Like, really, really, really strange, and like nothing's changed at all. Then again, 7 years ago would have been 2017. So you may have been working for Games Workshop around the time I was. So maybe we're just two children of the same time. That'd be pretty cool. Anyway, send in more stuff, dude. I would love to read out some more stuff from you. That was really cool. Right, moving on. Nick says, "Hello, North. I'm Nick. Do you think this story would make for an interesting hobby nightmare? Here is my first draft of the tale. If you think it has potential, please let me know how I could improve it for better reading or where to add more context. Some parts of the email are pretty rough, so tread carefully." Well, I did read through this, and I thought it was good, so I'm going to use it as it is. This is the story of one of my last Mordheim games. Wow, we do not get many Mordheim nightmares. We do not get many of these. This is the story of one of my last Mordheim games, and how it spiraled into what I can only describe as a hobby nightmare. But here's the twist, North. I think I might have been the nightmare. Ooh, I like these ones. I like these ones. We were playing a 4-way Mordheim battle with heavily customized rules. 3 players teaming up against a brutally tough NPC faction, while random encounters popped up every other round. Our goal? To completely personally... Sorry, that I read that wrong. This isn't this guy's fault. That was me. That was me being a retard, alright? Our goal? To complete personally chosen narrative objectives while we compete for limited loot. There could only be one winner at the end. The setup was epic. Our table is the best in the city, maybe even in the country, maybe even in the whole peninsula. Feel free to challenge me, Balkan nations. Picks included. Okay. Where are these pickies? Where are these pickies? Oh! Cool. Yeah, let's show some of these. This is pretty cool. I like these. There we go. Yeah, man, that's badass. That's badass. I like that. That's cool. Elves have been spotted in Mordheim. We've got some others here as well. Oh. There we go. Dude, that's some really cool scenery. We never really get scenery boards. This is really cool, though. How nice is that? Very nice. I think this is grim, this one, from what I saw. Yeah, it is. Look at that. Dude, can I play in your games? These are amazing. That's amazing stuff. Right. From the start, I teamed up with another player since the non-player characters we created were pretty brutal. I play elves and he plays dwarves, and our unlikely alliance was off to a great start. Meanwhile, the third player was off on his own, not really engaging with us. Things were going well initially. My elves helped thin out the horde of zombies, which allowed the dwarves to rescue a prisoner. The prisoner is immortal, but has no legs, so they chopped off his head like Kratos did to Mimir in God of War. That way he can lead them to their next objective. While the dwarves lumbered towards it, my elves focused their attention on an evil wizard's tower. But then, things took a turn for the worse. My main objective was to take down said evil wizard and snatch his magical book, but this NPC was an absolute nightmare. I spent several rounds fighting him, but my dice rolls were abysmal. Meanwhile, his heavily armoured skeleton minions were crippling my warband. My dwarven ally had moved on to fight a boss monster, and I was left on my own, struggling. As if things couldn't get worse, the third player, who'd been doing his own thing at that point, reached my side of the table. He was playing a homebrewed warband of Sigmar Knights. Think Thunderhammers, Mega Shields, Holy Armour, the works. But instead of helping me out, he decided to attack my elves. I was stunned. Dude, why are you attacking me? I said. Can't you see I'm up to my ears in undead? But he would not be dissuaded from his course of action. Realising that reasoning wasn't going to work, I tried to adjust strategy. I decided to flee from the skeletons and Sigmar Knights and focused on my fight with the wizard. Let him deal with the OP skeletons, right? It's even a lore-accurate elven move. Yeah, it is. Finally, after what felt like hours, I rolled a hit and a 6 to wound, enough to kill the wizard and claim his accursed magical book. But the die was slightly cocked, landing on a piece of sloped terrain. The Sigmar player immediately called for a reroll. I sighed and did it, rolling a 1 instead. The wizard then got up and killed my leader. I was furious, seething inwardly, but all I could manage outwardly was a long drawn out fuck, as I felt part of my soul leave my body. And then to top her off, the Sigmar player quipped, "Sigmar does not appreciate cheating, elf." That was it. I snapped. I stopped short of calling him names, but I pretty much told him I didn't want to play with him anymore and made it clear that I don't like him. After that, he finished off the skeletons no problem, left my elves alone, and went off to fight the boss. The rest of the battle didn't really matter. I grabbed the wizard's book and fled, but the fun was already long gone. I left the table feeling like I had let my frustration get the better of me, and that I might have hurt Sigmar players' feelings in the process. North, that game brought out the worst in me. I had to go outside for some fresh air. I was that mad. Since then, I've been keeping my distance from him, the Sigmar player I mean. Not really sure how to handle things from here. I've seen him around a few times, and I've tried to be civil, but I can't help but feel a little bit awkward. So, am I an asshole for just avoiding him? Should I just get over it and try to patch things up? I'm still torn, but I seriously meant it when I said I didn't want to play with him anymore. God, it sounds so childish when I type that, but it's true. Alright. Let me just see. P.S. I mentioned cursed dice in the title of this email. I am of course referring to the dice I used in that game. I haven't used those dice since. I believe that they really are cursed. If anybody is in the market for some actual mega cursed dice, I'm willing to sell them. The curse is 100% real. I did the saltwater test with them on the same night after the game. They are not weighted, they just roll inexplicably bad. I've given them to other players to try out, and they can confirm that they are evil. The dice are weaponizable. You can give them to your enemy as a gift, or use them to lose games on purpose. With the cursed dice, you will always have something else to blame. This is a serious offer. We can agree on a price, but I'll also exchange them for a used Hand of the Archon Kill Team, because Kill Team is a better game. If people in the comments are interested, I will post pictures of the evil dice on the server, North's Discord server. They are the black and white dice from the Warhammer 40,000 Munchkin card game. Alright, so, I don't think you're being an asshole here, man. Like, I think you're being a bit too harsh on yourself. I don't think you're being an ass. I think you're making a very grown-up decision and saying, look, I only get a certain amount of time to play with my toy soldiers every week, and I don't want to do it with this person. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Maybe, could you have handled that better? Sure, but we've all had off days, we've all had days where we just have had enough with people. We've had it up to here with them, right? And it happens, dude. It just happens. So I don't think you should be so hard on yourself. I think you need to learn to account for and take responsibility for your fair share of things in life. Do you know what I'm saying? But it also means take your fair share, right? Don't take more. Don't crucify yourself with bad thoughts of how you're a terrible person and all this other nonsense, right? Don't do that. Just don't. It's not worth it, man. It really isn't. Take the worries that are rightfully yours. No problem with that at all. But dude, choosing not to play somebody in a game isn't something you need to be losing sleep about or thinking about in the shower, right? It just isn't. So I think you made the right decision. Listen, dude, we've all snapped, and this guy's behaviour would have really rubbed me up the wrong way as well. We've all had a little snap every now and again at somebody that we didn't mean to do. Maybe if you want to, if I was you, maybe apologise. Just say, listen, man, remember that time when I had a go at you? I still don't want to play, like, because I just don't think we're compatible in the game, you know what I mean? And your style and my style aren't that compatible. But I just wanted to apologise for being a dick, man. I didn't mean to shout at you and be an arsehole about it, alright? I just wanted to clear the air. And then he can do with that what he wishes. But just make sure you remember this, Nick, right? Make sure you remember this. What he thinks about you and your apology is none of your business. That's the best bit of advice I can give. What other people think of you is none of your business. It's their problem. It's none of your business. So, I would apologise if you feel bad about it, right? Be very clear. I still don't want to play. I still don't want to, like, I don't think we're compatible in terms of gaming. But, you know, I don't want to be a dick. So, I apologise for what I did last time. And I wanted to clear the air. Didn't mean to be an arsehole. Sorry about that, right? And then move on with your life. But remember, again, only take your allotted worries and guilt from the world. There's enough of it going around. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, I love you all long time. I will speak to you tomorrow for some more Hobby Nightmares, or we may be doing a 40k rant tomorrow. I will see what I can get written over the next few days. I love you all. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Love you a long time. See you soon. Bye now.